Rain ticked on the kitchen window, steady as a metronome. Ryan Cole stood at the stove with his sleeves pushed up, coaxing breakfast into something that looked intentional. The toaster popped. He set a slice of bread on the cutting board and pressed a cookie cutter down hard. When he lifted it, the shape was supposed to be a bridge. It came out more like a bent smile. Maddie watched from the table barefoot in her pajama pants, curls everywhere. She held a square of paper between both hands and folded it with quiet seriousness. "That's not a bridge," she said. "It is," Ryan replied. He slid the toast onto her plate and spread strawberry jam in glossy stripes. "It's a creative bridge." Maddie's face said creative was adult code for sloppy. She lowered her eyes and creased the paper again, using her thumbnail like a tiny blade. In under a minute, she had a small arched bridge sitting on the table, crisp and balanced. "Mine works," she said, and tapped it once. It didn't collapse. Ryan reached for his coffee. His blue mug was thick and chipped at the rim, the cobalt glaze worn where his thumb always rested. He'd owned it forever. He kept telling himself he'd replace it. He never did. "Bridges are for crossing," Maddie added, not looking up. "You can't just stand at the edge." Ryan took a sip. The coffee was too hot and a little bitter the way he liked it when he was trying to feel awake. "Eat your toast," he said. Maddie took a bite and sighed like she'd been given a hard assignment. "Okay, it tastes better than it looks." The refrigerator behind them was crowded with drawings and notes. One crayon picture showed a stick figure with messy hair holding up a toast bridge. In block letters, Maddie had written "Dad's Bridge Breakfast." "Field trip form," Maddie said. Ryan found the paper under a stack of mail and signed it fast before he could forget. They moved through the rest of the morning, on momentum. Lunch packed, shoes on, Maddie's ponytail losing the battle with her curls. At the door, Maddie lifted her paper bridge. "Can I bring it for show and tell? It'll get crushed." "I'll hold it," she said, already stubborn. Ryan relented. Maddie cradled the bridge like it mattered. It did. Outside, Portland was gray and glossy. A city bus hissed past, throwing mist into the air. Ryan jogged Maddie to the car, shielding her with his body out of a habit. On the drive, the windshield wipers swept in calm arcs. "Is your boss still scary?" Maddie asked. Ryan kept his voice light. "She's not scary, she's precise." "That's a yes," Maddie said. At the school drop-off, Maddie hopped out with her backpack and her paper bridge. She turned back once. "Don't stay on the edge," she called, then ran toward the doors, her sneakers splashing through shallow puddles. Ryan watched until she disappeared inside. The car felt too quiet. The passenger seat held Maddie's forgotten mitten, damp and tiny. His phone lit up. He picked it up before he could overthink it. A dating app notification glowed on the screen, bright against the dull morning. He had downloaded the app on a night when the house had gone too silent. He didn't open the message. He locked the screen and set the phone face down. In the center console, under coins and old receipts, his wedding ring sat in a small velvet pouch. He couldn't wear it anymore. He couldn't get rid of it either. Juniper and Company occupied a renovated warehouse downtown, brick and big windows, the kind of place designed to look relaxed. Inside, nobody was relaxed. Upstairs, the agency hummed. Keyboards clicked. A printer spat out pitch decks. Someone burned popcorn in the break room, and the smell clung to the air. Ryan nodded at people without stopping and slipped into his desk like a man trying not to be noticed. He was good at his job. Clients liked him. His campaigns performed. Still in meetings, he sometimes held ideas back until someone else said something close enough that he could pretend he'd never had the thought. It was easier than being wrong in front of Vivian Cross. A ripple moved through the open floor at 7:28 a.m. It wasn't loud. It was the sudden quiet you hear right before a storm hits. Vivian walked in. Charcoal blazer, white blouse, hair pulled tight and clean, no jewelry that caught the light. She carried a tablet and a blue ceramic mug, the same deep color as Ryan's, except hers was perfect, unchipped, like it had never been dropped or kept too long. She didn't slow down. She didn't look around to see who was watching. She didn't have to. Ryan caught a glimpse of her profile as she passed the glass conference room. Calm face, focused eyes, a woman built from deadlines. He sat at his desk and opened his campaign file. His phone buzzed once more, impatient on the edge of his vision. He kept it face down and forced his attention onto the screen. A voice rose over the partition, clipped and efficient. "Ryan, budget review in 15. He answered without looking up. "Got it." Outside the windows, rain kept falling steady and quiet, turning the city into a blur of silver and slate. Ryan had barely said, "Got it," before the room seemed to tilt toward the clock. 15 minutes was plenty of time to open a deck check, a table pretend he was calm. It was also enough time to do something stupid. He flipped his phone over. The dating app opened to a chat thread with a profile photo that showed only a smile and a river of dark hair. The name read Sienna. Her last message sat there like a dare. So what do you actually want, Ryan? The safe answer rose first. Dinner, conversation, a slow start. Something that did not demand anything from him except polite effort. He pictured Maddie at the table creasing her paper bridge until it held its shape. Ryan inhaled and typed anyway. I miss being close to someone. He deleted it. Too soft, too vague. He tried again slower, letting the words come from somewhere lower. I miss the small things. A hand on my neck when I am making coffee. Someone leaning in just because they can. Heat crept up his throat. It was not only desire, it was grief threaded through it, the body remembering what the mind kept refusing. A flash of Claire at their old kitchen sink came uninvited, sleeves rolled soap on her wrists, laughing. Ryan blinked until the memory loosened. He added another line before he could talk himself out of it. I miss being wanted. I miss wanting back without apologizing for it. He wrote one more sentence bold enough to make his own ears burn. I miss the kind of night where you end up against the kitchen counter breathless because you forgot to be careful. He reread the message. Honest, maybe too honest. His thumb hovered over send, then pulled away. He set the phone down like it might bite and pulled up his budget file. He checked the Johnson account figures twice, then grabbed his tablet and moved fast through the open floor. People kept their voices low. A designer near the printer whispered a joke that died halfway through. Ryan passed Vivian's office. The door was open. Inside, she stood at her standing desk, reading a printout with a red pen poised like a scalpel. She did not look up. He felt her attention anyway, like a heat lamp. Inside the glass conference room, the lights were bright enough to bleach color. Vivian sat at the head of the table, white blouse sharp against her charcoal jacket. Her blue mug rested to her right, perfect and unchipped, the kind of object that suggested nothing in her life ever fell off a shelf. A spreadsheet filled the wall screen. Clean columns, no mercy. The finance lead began presenting. Numbers rolled out steady and dull. Vivian listened without moving except for the occasional tap of her pen. Ryan opened his notes and forced himself to listen. His phone rested beside his leg out of sight. He told himself to leave it alone. His hand disobeyed. Under the table, he woke the screen and saw Sienna's thread. The message he had drafted waited there. The cursor blinked. He told himself he would not add anything else. He typed anyway, keeping his face neutral, while someone talked about overhead. I want a kiss that makes the rest of the day disappear. He hesitated. He should stop. Instead, he added a softer line, trying to pull it back into something normal. And I want to know you too, not just the fun parts. A new notification slid down from the top of the screen, not from the dating app, from Juniper's internal messaging. Vivian Cross, need your revised Johnson numbers in the room. His stomach tightened. He tapped his notification without thinking, then realized what he had done. The screen shifted. The thread changed. Vivian's name sat at the top, stark and official. Ryan locked the phone fast and slid it deeper under the table as if distance could fix it. He kept his eyes on the wall screen and pretended to be interested in a line item about software licenses. Vivian clicked to the next slide. Optimism is not a strategy, she said, and moved on. When Vivian reached the line for marketing, she turned her head and fixed her gaze on Ryan. Your numbers, she said. Ryan's throat went dry. He began to speak, pointing to the Johnson account, the conversion drop they were correcting, the creative angle that had tested well, but made the client nervous. His voice was steady at first. He could do this part. He was halfway through when Vivian cut in. Give me the risk, she said. Ryan swallowed. The risk is the client wants safer messaging. If we overcorrect, we lose the edge. If we refuse, we lose their trust. Vivian held his eyes for a beat, then nodded once. Continue. Ryan exhaled and looked down to scroll his notes. His fingers brushed his phone. The screen woke bright and accusing. He tried to lock it without thinking. His thumb hit the wrong place. A message sent. No sound, no warning, just a tiny motion on the screen and the word delivered appearing under his text. Ryan stared blank at first, then sharp with horror. The name at the top of the thread was not Sienna. Vivian Cross. Not the app, not a stranger. His work thread with the CEO, full of budgets and deadlines and polite confirmations, now holding a message about hands on a neck and a kitchen counter and breathless nights. The message sat there in full, his own words stacked in neat bubbles, as if they belonged in a business thread. His skin prickled under his collar. He could not undo it. He could not even hide it. He kept talking because stopping would have been worse. We can tighten the media buy by 7%, he heard himself say, voice too fast. His tablet blurred for a second. Derek's gaze flicked to his lap, then back to Ryan's face, a quick look that said he noticed something was wrong and might enjoy finding out what. Vivian's eyes stayed on him calm and sharp. His stomach dropped. He forced his face still and lifted his eyes to the table. Vivian was looking at him. "Are you finished, Ryan?" she asked. The room waited. Ryan tasted coffee and metal. "Yes," he managed. Vivian's eyes narrowed by a fraction, not anger, something colder. Assessment. She looked away and returned to the spreadsheet. Ryan sat perfectly still. Under the table, his phone glowed like a wound. Ryan kept his hands flat on the table until the meeting ended. He nodded when someone else spoke. He wrote down numbers he already knew. He breathed through his nose and made his face do what it always did in rooms like this. Nothing. Vivian did not reach for her phone. She did not glance down. She did not flinch, not even once. She moved through the remaining slides with the same controlled pace, her voice clean and even. When the finance lead stumbled over a percentage, she corrected it without looking at her notes. When Derek tried to sneak in a joke about tightening belts, she met his eyes and let the silence do the cutting. Ryan's phone stayed bright under the table for a few seconds, then dimmed. The message was still there, delivered, sitting inside a thread that had never held anything personal. His own words stared back at him with a kind of cruel clarity. Vivian closed her tablet. "Send your revised line items to finance by noon," she said. "If you are guessing, say you are guessing. I will take bad news over vague confidence." Chairs shifted. People stood. The room filled with polite goodbyes, the kind that sounded like they had been practiced. Ryan waited until Vivian turned to speak with Elaine from the board, then stood and walked out without meeting anyone's eyes. His legs felt too light, like he was walking on a surface that might crack. He kept moving through the open floor, past desks and screens, and the smell of burnt popcorn. At his workstation, he sat down and pulled his laptop closer, as if he could hide behind it. He did not look at his phone again. He did not need to. The words had already imprinted themselves on the inside of his skull. His email inbox refreshed. Campaign updates, client requests, a calendar reminder for Maddie's school project. Nothing from Vivian. No message, no summons, no short note that could end his job in 7 words. He tried to work. He opened the Johnson deck and adjusted a headline by 2 points. He moved an image left, then right. He changed a shade of gray and changed it back. The cursor blinked at him like it was waiting for an apology he could not type. Every time someone walked past his desk, Ryan's shoulders tensed. Every time his phone vibrated, he felt his stomach drop. At noon, he sent revised numbers to finance with a short, careful email. At 12:30, he checked his sent folder to make sure he had not accidentally sent it to Vivian too. At 1, he stared at his phone long enough for the screen to wake on its own. No new notifications. He considered opening the thread with Vivian and writing something simple. "Please ignore that. Wrong thread. I am sorry." His fingers hovered, then pulled back. Anything he wrote would become a record. Anything he wrote would invite a response. He could not decide which possibility was worse. Across the room, Vivian's office door remained open. People passed in and out for quick questions. She spoke quietly. She did not raise her voice. She did not glance toward Ryan's desk. The normalcy made his nerves itch. If she was furious, why was she acting like nothing happened? If she had not seen it, how could that be possible? If she had seen it and was waiting, why did it feel like she was letting him sit in his own dread on purpose? Rain pressed against the windows in soft sheets. Cars moved down the street as smudges of red and white. Portland looked like it was being rinsed clean. At 3, Derek stopped by Ryan's desk with a paper cup of coffee, his expression too casual. "Good meeting," Derek said. Ryan managed a nod. Derek's eyes dropped quick and sharp to Ryan's phone, then up again. "You seem tense." "I am fine," Ryan said. Derek smiled as if he had just been handed a secret. "Sure you are." He walked away whistling under his breath. The sound was thin and irritating. Ryan watched him go, then forced his gaze back to his screen. By 5:30, Ryan's jaw hurt from clenching. Still nothing. Vivian left her office once, walking briskly across the floor, speaking to Elaine with her head slightly tilted, listening like every word was data. She did not spare Ryan a glance. At 6, he shut down his computer with shaking hands and picked up his coat. He kept his phone in his pocket screen, pressed against his thigh like a hidden bruise. Outside, the air was cold and wet. The parking garage smelled of concrete and damp leaves. Ryan drove to Maddie's school, gripping the steering wheel too hard. Maddie waited near the curb under a covered awning, her backpack slumped on one shoulder. She saw his car and waved both hands. Her smile hit him in the chest with a kind of relief that made his eyes sting. She climbed in smelling like crayons and classroom soap. Dad, guess what? My bridge survived. Ryan swallowed. Yeah. I carried it all day, she said, pulling it from her bag like a treasure. The paper bridge was bent at one corner, but still standing. Mrs. Larkin said it was strong because I made the folds tight.
That is good, Ryan said. Ball, team will see you was to a soul.
Maddie studied him. You sound like you are thinking about something else. Ryan turned on the heater. Warm air filled the car. Just work. Is Vivian Cross still being precise? Ryan let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. Yes. Maddie took that in. Did you do something wrong? No, he said too fast, then softened it. I made a mistake. Maddie's eyes widened, interested, like a big one. Ryan kept his gaze on the road. The wipers swept. The rain kept tapping, not the kind you can fix with an eraser. Maddie leaned back and hugged her backpack. Mom used to say mistakes are loud. You can hear them in your head. Ryan's throat tightened. Did she say that? Sometimes, Maddie said, when she burned pancakes. Ryan's hands relaxed slightly on the wheel. He pictured Claire at the stove, flipping pancakes too early, laughing at the mess, kissing his cheek with flour on her nose. The memory came with warmth and a sting like hot coffee on a cracked lip. At home, Maddie went straight to the kitchen table and pulled out her homework. Ryan moved through dinner on autopilot. He heated soup and cut bread. He asked Maddie about her day. He nodded at the right places. He smiled when she made a joke about her teacher's dramatic size. His phone stayed in his pocket through all of it. It felt heavy, as if it contained something physical. After dinner, Maddie brushed her teeth and put on her pajama pants. She carried her paper bridge upstairs and set it on her dresser like a guard. Ryan read her a short chapter from a library book, his voice steadier than he felt. Maddie's eyelids drooped, then lifted again. Dad, she murmured. Yeah. Are you scared? He hesitated, a little. Maddie reached out and touched his wrist with 2 fingers, gentle. Then breathe, like you tell me. Ryan closed his eyes for a second and breathed in. The house smelled faintly of toast and detergent. The rain made the windows whisper. He opened his eyes and kissed Maddie's forehead. Good night, he said. Good night, Maddie replied, already drifting. Ryan stood in the hallway afterward, listening to her breathing settle into something even. He walked downstairs slowly, as if noise could make everything worse. In the living room, a lamp cast a warm circle on the carpet. Maddie's drawings were spread across the coffee table. One showed the 3 of them at a park, stick figures with big smiles. Claire was there too, drawn with a bright yellow sun behind her head. Ryan felt the familiar ache, steady and old. He finally pulled out his phone. The screen lit up. No new messages. His stomach did a small, bitter flip. He opened the thread with Vivian, unable to resist any longer. The message was still there in clean bubbles, his words uninvited and undeniable. He scrolled up to older texts, meeting confirmations, budget reminders, a single thank you for a deck he had sent last week. The contrast made his face burn. He stared at the typing field. His thumbs hovered. He imagined Vivian reading his apology with the same expression she wore in meetings, her face composed, her mind already deciding consequences. Ryan locked the phone and set it on the table face down. He went to the sink and turned on the water, watching it run as if he could wash time away. He turned it off and stood there, with his hands gripping the counter. Then the doorbell rang. Ryan froze. The sound was clean and bright in the quiet house. The second ring came a moment later, patient, not aggressive. He glanced at the clock on the wall. 9:12. Maddie's voice floated down from upstairs, sleepy and curious. Dad, who is it? Ryan's mouth went dry. Stay in bed, he called, keeping his voice steady. He walked to the front door and looked through the peephole. Vivian Cross stood on his porch in the rain, not in a blazer, not in heels. She wore a dark sweater and jeans, her hair loose and damp at the ends. The porch light caught the water on her lashes. Her face was calm, but her eyes held something that did not belong in the office. Ryan's hand rested on the doorknob, cold metal under his palm. He did not open it right away. He listened to the rain and the quiet house and the soft movement of his own breath. Then he turned the knob. The door opened on a thin line of warm air and lamplight. Rain clung to Vivian's sweater in dark patches. A few strands of hair had escaped and stuck to her cheek. She did not step in right away. Mr. Cole, she said. Ryan flinched at the formality. Ms. Cross. Her gaze moved past him into the house. Not nosy, not searching, more like she was taking inventory of what a life looked like when it was not made of conference rooms. "May I come in?" she asked. Ryan's hand tightened on the knob. "My daughter is upstairs." Vivian nodded once. "I will keep my voice down." He stepped aside. She crossed the threshold and wiped her shoes on the mat without being told. The porch light fell away behind her. Inside, she looked different. Not softer exactly, just less armored. She carried a small leather folder under one arm. No umbrella, like she had not thought of comfort on the way here. Ryan closed the door. The quiet in the house felt louder than the rain. "Living room," he said, pointing as if she might get lost. Vivian followed him down the short hallway. Maddie's drawings covered one wall. A crooked line of family photos ran along a shelf. A pair of small sneakers sat by the stairs' toes, muddy. Ryan reached for the lamp and turned it up a notch. The light fell in a warm circle across the couch and coffee table. He realized with a rush that there were paper scraps on the rug and a stack of library books on the floor. He scooped them up too quickly, bumping his elbow on the table. Vivian watched without comment. "I was about to go upstairs," Ryan said. "She is asleep. Mostly." "I can wait," Vivian said. Her voice held the same precision it had in meetings, but the volume was lower, almost careful. She sat on the edge of the couch, posture straight, hands resting on her knees. The leather folder stayed in her lap like a shield she did not entirely trust. Ryan stayed standing. He did not know where to put his hands, so he put them in his pockets, his phone pressed against his thigh. "Do you want water?" he asked, then hated how stupid it sounded. Vivian blinked once. No. The silence stretched. The rain kept tapping on the windows. Somewhere in the kitchen, the refrigerator hummed. Ryan forced himself to speak. "I am sorry." Vivian's eyes met his. "For the message." "Yes." His mouth felt dry. He cleared his throat and tried again. "It was not meant for you. I was messaging someone on an app. I was not paying attention. I sent it to the wrong thread." Vivian's expression did not change. "I assumed that was the case." Ryan stared at her. "You did." "A man who works under me for 4 months does not suddenly decide to describe a kitchen counter to me at 3 in the afternoon," she said. Her tone was flat, but her eyes were not cruel. "Not unless he wants to be unemployed." Ryan's cheeks burned. "I have been waiting all day." "For what?" "For you to call me into your office." He let out a breath that shook. "For HR. For whatever comes after that." Vivian's gaze dropped to the leather folder in her lap. She placed it on the coffee table and opened it. Ryan's stomach turned over. She pulled out a single printed page. He recognized the top of the internal message thread. His own words sat there in black ink. Ryan's throat tightened. "You printed it." "I did," Vivian said. "Not for the reason you think." He could not stop himself. To build a case. Vivian looked at him for a long moment. "Sit down, Ryan." Hearing his first name from her mouth made the room shift. He sat on the armchair across from her, leaving too much space between them. He leaned forward with his elbows on his knees like he was waiting for a verdict. Vivian held the printed page by its corners. She did not wave it. She did not treat it like a weapon. She read the first line again, then set it down. "You wrote that?" she said. Ryan's voice came out small. "Yes." Was any of it true? He swallowed. "It was true that I miss intimacy." He stared at the rug. "It was true that I miss being touched in a way that is not accidental." Vivian's fingers tapped once on the paper, and the rest. Ryan lifted his eyes. "It was a message to someone else. I was trying to be honest." Vivian's mouth tightened, not with anger, with something closer to thought. Honesty is not common, not the real kind. Ryan tried to laugh and failed. "This is the wrong kind." "It was unprofessional," Vivian said. "Yes." Ryan's beat of shoulders rose like he was bracing for impact. Vivian continued steady. "It also reminded me that you are not just a title. You are not only the man who slides decks into my inbox at midnight." Ryan looked at her confused. She glanced around the room. The stack of library books. The paper scraps. The family photo on the shelf where Claire held a baby Maddie, both of them smiling into the camera. Vivian's eyes paused there. The stop was brief, but Ryan felt it. "Your wife," Vivian said quietly. It was not a question. Ryan's chest tightened. "Claire? She died 3 years ago." Vivian's gaze remained on the photo for a beat too long, then returned to him. The muscles in her jaw shifted like she had swallowed something hard. "I did not know," she said. "You would not," Ryan replied. "I do not talk about it at work." "No one talks about anything at work," Vivian said, and there was something almost tired in it. She looked down at her hands. Her nails were clean, short, practical. "They talk at me." Ryan did not know what to say to that. He stared at her blue mug that sat in his kitchen doorway, on a small shelf forgotten from the morning. He realized it was his mug, not hers. He had left it there when he came in. The cobalt glaze caught the light. Vivian followed his gaze and nodded toward it. "You drink it black." Ryan blinked. How do you know that? You bring it into meetings sometimes, she said. You set it down on the table like it is an anchor. Ryan's mouth opened, then closed. He had never noticed her noticing him. Vivian's hands folded together. Do you know why I came here? Ryan forced himself to answer. To tell me I am fired. Vivian's eyes narrowed slightly. No. The word landed with unexpected weight. Ryan sat still, waiting for the second part. At the office, I am Vivian Cross, CEO, she said. People watch every breath I take and decide what it means. If I called you into my office about that message, it would become something else. A spectacle, a rumor, a power play. Ryan's stomach tightened at the accuracy. Vivian leaned back against the couch, the motion small but real, as if she was letting herself sink into it for the first time. Here, she said, gesturing vaguely at the room. I am just a woman standing in your living room, wet from the rain, holding a page I should not have printed. Ryan's pulse beat in his throat. I do not understand. Vivian's eyes held his. I have been divorced for 6 years. I learned how to win rooms. I learned how to be respected. Somewhere in that, I stopped being someone anyone tried to know. Ryan's voice came out careful. Because you do not let them. Vivian's mouth twitched almost a smile. Correct. The rain pressed harder against the window, a soft hiss. Vivian continued quieter. Your message was the first time in a long time that anyone spoke to me like I was wanted, even accidentally. Ryan's face went hot again. I am sorry. Vivian shook her head. Do not apologize for being alive. The words startled him. He sat back, trying to square them with the woman who said things like, optimism is not a strategy. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Maddie's small voice drifted down the stairwell. Dad, I need water. Ryan rose so fast the chair scraped. I will be right back, he said, voice low. Vivian stood as well, but stayed near the couch. Take your time. Ryan moved up the stairs 2 at a time. Maddie stood in the hallway, hair flattened on one side, eyes half open. Hey, he whispered. What is wrong? Water, she murmured. Then her gaze slid past him toward the stairs. Is someone here? Just someone from work, Ryan said. Maddie squinted. A precise someone. Ryan sighed softly. Go back to bed. He brought her a small cup of water, watched her drink, then tucked her in again. Her paper bridge sat on her dresser, slightly bent, still standing. Are you in trouble? Maddie asked, voice thick with sleep. Ryan brushed hair from her forehead. Not tonight. Maddie's fingers curled around the cup. Okay, she said, and her eyes closed. Ryan returned downstairs. Vivian was standing near the bookshelf now, looking at the spines of children's books and a jar of colored pencils. She turned when he entered, as if she had heard his footsteps. She is 8, Vivian said. Ryan nodded. Too smart for her own good. Vivian's gaze drifted to the refrigerator. Maddie's crayon drawing of the toast bridge still hung there, the letters bold. Dad's bridge breakfast. Vivian looked back at Ryan. You make her breakfast like that. Ryan felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with the printed message. Sometimes. Vivian's voice softened. It shows. Ryan did not trust himself to answer. He gestured toward the couch. Vivian sat again. Ryan sat too, this time on the far end of the couch, leaving a careful gap between them. Vivian picked up the printed page and slid it back into the folder. You are not fired, she said. Ryan exhaled long and shaky, as if he had been holding his breath all day. Thank you. Vivian's eyes narrowed. That is not an apology, Ryan. It is not forgiveness. It is a decision about work. He nodded quickly. Understood. Vivian studied him. You are quieter in meetings than you should be. Ryan's brow creased. Excuse me. You have ideas, Vivian said. I can see them land behind your eyes. You hesitate. Then someone else says something similar. You let them have it. Ryan stared at her, caught. He did not deny it. Vivian's gaze stayed steady. Stop being afraid of me. The rain shifted a heavier burst against the glass. Ryan swallowed. I am not. Vivian lifted one eyebrow. The gesture was familiar, sharp. In the warm living room light, it looked almost human. Ryan let out a quiet breath. I can try. Do more than try, Vivian said. Then her voice lowered, and her eyes held something that did not belong to quarterly reports. And as for the app you were using, Ryan skilled. Van prickled. Please do not. Vivian's mouth curved slightly. You are terrible at pretending you do not want things. Ryan stared at the carpet. I have not done this in a long time. I know, Vivian said, and there was no judgment in it, only fact. Ryan lifted his eyes. So why are you here? Vivian looked at him for a beat, then reached for her folder and stood. The movement broke the tension like a snapped thread. I came here, she said, because I wanted to speak to you, where you are not trying to impress me. Ryan rose too slower. Did I succeed? Vivian's eyes flicked over his rumpled shirt, his tired face the trace of fear he had not managed to hide. "You are still trying," she said. He gave a small, helpless laugh. "It is a habit." Vivian walked toward the front door. Ryan followed, keeping his hands at his sides as if any sudden motion might ruin whatever this was. At the entryway she paused. The porch light made a pale square on the floor. Vivian turned to him. Her face was composed, but her eyes were not cold. "Dinner," she said. Ryan blinked. "Dinner. Not as CEO and employee," Vivian said, as Vivian and Ryan. His mind filled with reasons to refuse. Policy, risk, talk, the faces in the conference room, Derek's smile, the way Vivian carried authority like it weighed nothing. Then he saw the damp edge of her sweater, the rain still clinging to her, as if she had walked through it on purpose. He saw how she had not used the folder like a weapon, how she had listened, how she had said, "Do not apologize for being alive." Ryan's voice came out steady, "Yes." Vivian's breath left her slowly, almost like relief. She nodded once. "Good." She opened the door. Before she stepped out, she looked back at him. "And Ryan," she said. He held her gaze. "Check the name at the top of the thread next time." Heat rushed to his face. He could not stop a quiet laugh. It came out rough, half mortified, half real. Vivian's mouth curved small and quick. Then she stepped onto the porch. Rain found her immediately. She pulled the door closed behind her with care, leaving Ryan standing in warm lamplight, listening to the rain swallow her footsteps. Ryan did not move for a long moment after the door clicked shut. The warm air of the house still held Vivian's presence like a perfume that had nowhere to go. Rain kept tapping the porch roof. He stood with his palm on the wood, staring at the faint reflection of his own face in the glass. In the living room, the lamp threw a soft pool of light across Maddie's drawings. A paper scrap lay near the coffee table, a leftover from homework. He picked it up and smoothed it between his fingers without thinking. Paper was easy to flatten. People were not. He walked into the kitchen and found his blue mug sitting by the sink where he had abandoned it that morning. The chipped rim caught the light. He filled it with water and drank too fast, like he could rinse the day out of his mouth. The water was cold. It did nothing to his heartbeat. His phone sat face down on the coffee table. He looked at it as if it might be waiting for him to confess something. He did not touch it. He went upstairs instead. Maddie slept on her side, one arm flung over her pillow. Her paper bridge rested on the dresser, bent at one corner, but still standing. Ryan paused by her doorway, listening to her breathing steady and small. The anger and fear he had carried all day softened in that hallway. He eased the door closed. Downstairs again, he turned off lights one by one. The last thing he did before bed was check the locks twice. It was not about safety. It was about control. In bed, his mind kept replaying Vivian's voice in his living room. Calm, close, human. He heard her say his name and the sound stuck. When his phone finally buzzed, he jolted like he had been hit. One notification, a text from an unfamiliar number. "This is Vivian. You are not obligated to respond. Are you all right?" Ryan stared at the screen until the letters lost shape. Then he typed back, "I am all right. You should not have to drive in rain like that." A pause. "I chose to. Good night, Ryan." He read it twice. He set the phone down. He lay there watching rain slide down the window thin and silver in the streetlight. Morning came with the same gray light, the same wet streets. The routine carried him along. Toast, Maddie's lunch, a quick search for her other mitten. She walked down the stairs holding her paper bridge like it was a passport. "You look like you stayed up," Maddie said. Ryan kept his tone casual. Grown-ups are bad at sleeping. Because of the message Maddie said too direct. Ryan froze with the peanut butter knife in his hand. Maddie shrugged as if it was obvious. "You make a face when you are worried. It is like this." She scrunched her nose. Ryan forced a breath. "Eat your breakfast." Maddie chewed, watching him. Was it Vivian? Ryan did not answer right away. He set the knife down carefully. "I had a conversation with her." Maddie nodded, like she had been waiting for that. "Is she still precise?" Ryan almost smiled. "Yes." Maddie tapped her bridge. "Precise people can still cross, if they want." He drove her to school in silence that felt less heavy than yesterday. At drop-off, Maddie leaned in and kissed his cheek. "Try not to fall off the edge," she said. Ryan watched her disappear into the building again, then sat in the car with both hands on the steering wheel until his fingers stopped gripping so hard. At Juniper and Comey, the air smelled like wet coats and fresh paper. People worked with the careful speed of a place that feared surprise. Ryan walked to his desk and opened his laptop. His phone stayed in his pocket, quiet. At 7:28, the floor went still. Vivian arrived, charcoal blazer again, hair pulled back, blue mug in hand. She moved through the space like the building belonged to her, but her eyes flicked once, quick and precise, toward Ryan's desk. It was not a smile, it was not an invitation, it was an acknowledgement, the kind you could miss if you were not looking for it. A team meeting started at 9. Vivian ran it the way she ran everything. Clean agenda, no wasted words. Ryan sat with his notes open, trying to keep his breathing steady. The memory of his message printed on paper made him want to shrink. The memory of Vivian standing in his living room made him want to do the opposite. Vivian asked about the Johnson campaign. Ryan spoke. It was not a speech. It was a clear sentence about the risk and the direction and the reason. He felt the room shift slightly. A few heads turned. Derek's expression tightened, then smoothed into something polite. Vivian nodded once. "Send me the revised creative by noon," she said. Ryan kept his face neutral. "Will do." When the meeting ended, people filtered out in a rush. Vivian remained at the table, closing her notebook. Ryan gathered his things and stood waiting for his own feet to move. "Ryan," Vivian said. "Bismarckbury He stopped. 2 minutes, she added, her voice low. The room emptied. The glass walls showed blurred reflections of the office outside. Rain streaked the windows in thin lines. Vivian did not look at him right away. She slid her mug to the side, then set her hands flat on the table. "Last night," she said. Ryan felt his pulse jump. "Yes. You kept your voice down," Vivian said. "Thank you." He let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. "Of course." Vivian's eyes lifted to his face. "Dinner, if you still mean it." Ryan nodded. "I do." A pause. Her gaze stayed steady. "Friday, 7. "Okay," he said, somewhere quiet. Vivian reached into her bag and pulled out a small card, plain white, with an address written in clean handwriting. No company logo, no title. "Do not be late," she said. Ryan took the card. Their fingers did not touch. The space between them felt deliberate. Vivian stood, and Ryan. He looked up. Her eyes held a flicker of something that warmed and disappeared. "Bring your real opinion, not the safe one." Then she walked out, and the air in the room changed back to ordinary office air, fluorescent and cool. At lunch, Ryan called Harper, the college student, who sometimes babysat Maddie. Harper answered with a cheerful voice and an apology for being out of breath. "Friday at 7, Ryan said. "Can you do it?" "I can," Harper said. "Movie night." "Movie night," Ryan confirmed. He ended the call and stared at his screen, trying to focus on headline options. Words blurred. He kept seeing Vivian's handwriting on the card. A private address, a private time, a line crossed with intention. Friday arrived with a break in the rain. Not sun exactly, but a lighter sky that looked like it might forgive the city for being so gray. Ryan picked Maddie up from school, dropped her at home, and went through dinner with a careful calm. Harper arrived early. Maddie took one look at her and demanded popcorn. Ryan kissed Maddie's head before he left. "Be good." Maddie's eyes narrowed. "Are you going on a date?" Ryan blinked. "No." Maddie stared until he felt 14 years old. "Yes," he admitted. Maddie nodded once, satisfied. "Try not to do anything dumb." Ryan exhaled a quiet laugh. "I will try." He drove east out of the city, past wet streets and dark trees. The highway followed the river. Portland fell behind him in a smear of lights. The Columbia moved beside him, wide and slow, reflecting the sky like brushed metal. He found the restaurant in a small town tucked near the water. The building was low, warm light in the windows, a place that smelled like garlic and wood smoke when he stepped inside. It was not trendy, it was not loud. The tables were spaced far enough apart to breathe. Vivian was already there. She stood when she saw him, and for a second Ryan forgot to move. She wore a simple blue dress, not flashy, not trying. Her hair was down softer around her face. She looked like someone who existed outside of office hours. "You are on time," she said. "I did not want to test you," Ryan replied. Vivian's mouth curved slightly. "Good choice." They sat. The server brought water. Vivian did not reach for a wine list. She ordered sparkling water, then paused and looked at Ryan. "What do you want?" she asked. "Biscuit." The question landed differently here than it had on his phone. Ryan glanced around the room, the warm lights, the low murmur of other conversations. "I want to stop feeling like my life is only work and parenting," he said. Vivian's eyes stayed on him, attentive. "That is not an answer to the menu." Ryan almost smiled. "Then I want the burger." Vivian blinked, surprised, then let out a short laugh. It was quiet but real. "I will have the burger too," she told the server, then added, "and the fries." Ryan studied her as the server walked away. "I assumed you would order something that sounds expensive." "I eat," Vivian said. "People forget that." Ryan nodded. People forget a lot of things about you. Vivian's gaze sharpened, such as, he hesitated, then chose honesty, that you notice things. Vivian lifted an eyebrow. I am paid to. Ryan leaned back slightly. Last week you mentioned my mug, the way I set it down. Vivian's eyes flicked to his hands. You do it like you are anchoring yourself. Ryan looked down, caught. His fingers had wrapped around his water glass exactly that way. He released it. It works most days. Vivian's expression softened by a fraction, and the days it does not. Ryan did not answer at first. He watched a couple at the next table share a basket of bread, their shoulders angled toward each other like it was instinct. My wife used to make this place feel full, he said finally. After she died, everything got quieter, even when the house is loud. Vivian's gaze held his without pity. Grief changes the volume, she said. Ryan swallowed. Yes. The burgers arrived. The smell of toasted bun and salt rose between them. Vivian picked up a fry, dipped it in ketchup, and took a bite without apology. Something in Ryan's chest loosened. They talked as they ate, not about budgets, not about decks. Vivian asked about Maddie's school project, and actually listened, when Ryan described the paper bridge and Maddie's stubborn pride. Ryan asked Vivian what she read when she was not reading contracts. History, Vivian said. The obscure kind. The parts where people pretend they were always brave. Ryan smiled. I like the parts where someone makes a terrible decision and then has to live with it. Vivian's eyes held his for a beat, and the air between them turned charged. Careful, she said quietly. Ryan's voice came out lower. I am trying. They finished dinner slowly. Dessert came and went. Vivian's laugh appeared more than once, brief but bright, like a match struck in a dark room. Ryan found himself talking more than he expected, telling her about Maddie's opinions, on everything about the first time he tried to braid her hair, about burning pancakes and pretending it was on purpose. Vivian watched him with a look that made him feel seen, not evaluated. Outside, the air was cold and clean. The river smelled like stone and water. Ryan walked Vivian to her car. The street was wet and quiet. Their footsteps sounded too loud. Vivian stopped by the driver's side door. She looked at him for a moment, as if she was deciding what version of herself to be. I had a good time, she said. Ryan nodded. Me too. A beat, the kind that carried more than words. Vivian lifted her hand and touched his cheek, with 2 fingers light enough to feel like a question. Ryan did not move away. She leaned in and kissed him once, quick and controlled, but warm. Not a performance, not a mistake. When she pulled back, her eyes searched his face. Ryan's voice was soft. Drive safe. Vivian's mouth curved again, almost amused. I always do. She got into her car. Ryan stood on the sidewalk and watched her taillights disappear into the wet dark. On the drive home, he kept both hands on the wheel. He kept the music low. The highway lines stretched forward white and steady. The river slid beside him like a shadow. At home, the porch light was on. Harper waved from the window before he even reached the door. Inside, popcorn smell hung in the air. Harper whispered that Maddie had fallen asleep halfway through the movie. Ryan thanked her and saw her out. Upstairs, Maddie slept with her blanket twisted around her legs. Her paper bridge still stood on the dresser, stubborn and uneven, refusing to collapse. Ryan stood there in the quiet and let his shoulders drop. He touched the edge of the bridge once, careful, then pulled his hand back. Downstairs, he filled his blue mug with water, held it for a moment, and stared out at the wet street, where rain had started again in a fine mist. His phone buzzed once. A text from Vivian. Home. Ryan read it, then typed back. Home too. He set the phone down and took a sip, listening to the rain settle into its steady rhythm. The rain kept its soft insistence through the weekend, turning the gutters into thin streams and the sidewalks into mirrors. Ryan tried to treat Saturday like any other. Laundry, groceries, Maddie's spelling words at the kitchen table. But small things kept shifting, as if the house had been nudged half an inch, and he was noticing it with every step. He caught himself checking his phone more often. Not in a frantic way, in a careful way like he was handling glass. Vivian did not flood him with messages. She did not ask for reassurances or demand attention. When she texted, it was brief and exact. Did Maddie like the movie? Ryan stared at the words for a second, surprised by the question. He typed back. She fell asleep in 10 minutes. She pretended she did not. A pause. That sounds like her. Ryan read that line twice. He had never described Maddie to Vivian with enough detail for her to say it like that, and yet it fit. It sounded like Vivian had been listening even when no one was speaking. On Sunday morning, Maddie came downstairs carrying her paper bridge. She set it on the counter beside Ryan's cutting board, then climbed onto her chair. Can bridges have names? She asked. Ryan poured cereal into her bowl. Anything can have a name. Maddie chewed thoughtfully. This one is called Juniper. Ryan's hand stilled on the milk carton. Why Juniper? Because it sounds like your work. Maddie reached out and tapped the paper arch. And because it is still standing. Ryan turned away so she would not see his face. He opened his blue mug cabinet and pulled out the chipped cobalt cup. Coffee smelled sharp and familiar as he poured it. The steam rose and curled, then vanished. He heard Claire's voice in his head for a second, gentle and amused. Let yourself be happy. The memory made him swallow hard. Maddie watched him over the rim of her bowl. Are you thinking about Mom? Ryan set the mug down on the counter, anchoring himself without meaning to. Sometimes. Maddie nodded like she accepted that as weather. Okay. Later that afternoon, Ryan took Maddie to the park near their house. The rain had eased into a mist. The air smelled like wet bark and cold soil. The playground was mostly empty. A few parents stood under hoods and umbrellas, scrolling phones with one hand while watching their kids with the other. Maddie ran straight for the swings. Ryan pushed her gently, listening to the chain link squeak. You are spacing out, Maddie said as she swung forward. I am here, Ryan replied. See you, Mo? Your eyes are not, Maddie said. Ryan smiled despite himself. Your eyes are too much. Maddie laughed and pumped her legs higher. Her shoes kicked up tiny sprays of water. Ryan felt his phone vibrate in his pocket. He did not check it immediately. He waited until Maddie jumped off the swing and ran toward the climbing structure. He pulled out his phone. Vivian's name lit the screen. At the park near your street. 10 minutes. Is that acceptable? Ryan looked up, scanning the park as if Vivian might be there already. He typed back. Yes, we are near the swings. He slid the phone back into his pocket and watched Maddie scramble up the ladder. She reached the top and looked down at him triumphant. Dad, she called, watch me. I am watching, he said, and meant it. When Vivian appeared, Ryan saw her before Maddie did. Vivian walked along the path with her hands in her coat pockets, hair down and slightly damp. She wore simple sneakers and a dark scarf. No blazer, no mug. She moved with the same steady purpose she had at the office, but her shoulders were not held as high. Ryan's pulse quickened in a way he did not want to admit. Vivian stopped a few feet away. She looked at the wet playground, the gray sky, the children shouting. Her gaze landed on Ryan. Hello, she said. Hi, Ryan replied. They stood there for a beat, the pause full of things neither of them said out loud. Vivian's eyes flicked to the climbing structure. Maddie slid down the slide and landed in a splash of water. She looked up and froze. Her gaze traveled from Vivian's shoes to her face. Then she walked toward them, slow and certain. Vivian Cross, Maddie said like she was reading a name tag. Vivian's expression shifted. A flicker of surprise, then something softer. Maddie Cole. Maddie narrowed her eyes. How do you know my name? Vivian glanced at Ryan, then back to Maddie. Your father mentioned it. Maddie took that in, then held up her hands. Do you know how to fold paper? Vivian blinked once. Not well. Maddie nodded like she had expected that. Okay, I can teach you. Ryan felt his chest tighten. He looked at Vivian to see how she would handle it, whether she would retreat into politeness or refuse. Vivian crouched slightly so she was closer to Maddie's height, careful not to loom. That would be useful, Vivian said. I like learning things that work. Maddie's mouth twitched. Good, because mine works. Maddie ran back to the bench where her backpack sat and dug through it. She pulled out a crumpled square of paper. She smoothed it on her leg, then offered it to Vivian like it was an invitation and a test. Vivian took it with both hands, respectful. Maddie climbed onto the bench and started giving instructions in the serious tone of a tiny boss. Fold it like this, no sharper. Use your nail. Vivian followed, brow slightly furrowed. The motion looked unfamiliar on her. In the office, her hands moved through pages and contracts like they were extensions of her mind. Here she hesitated, then tried again. Maddie watched her closely. You are precise, she said. Vivian's eyes flicked up. So I have been told. Maddie nodded as if that was a compliment and a warning. Precise is good for bridges. Ryan stood a step away, silent. His throat felt tight. He could smell Vivian's perfume, something clean and faint, mixed with the wet air. He could hear Maddie's voice, steady and bright. The scene felt impossible and ordinary at the same time. When the paper was folded into a simple arch, Maddie tapped it once. It held. Vivian looked at it, then at Maddie. It stands. Maddie smiled, pleased. See? Bridges are easy if you do what you are supposed to. Vivian's mouth curved small and real. That is an opinion. Maddie shrugged. It is true. Ryan expected Vivian to stiffen at that. Instead, Vivian laughed quietly. The sound was brief, like she did not fully trust it, but it was there. Ryan felt something inside him loosen. They stayed at the park for half an hour. Maddie played. Vivian sat on the bench beside Ryan, hands wrapped around a paper cup of coffee she had bought from the cart at the entrance. The cup was white, unremarkable. Ryan wondered if she had chosen it on purpose because it did not signal anything. Their shoulders were not touching, but the space between them felt warm. "You came," Ryan said low. Vivian's gaze stayed on Maddie as she ran across the grass. "I said 10 minutes. That is not what I meant." Vivian looked at him then. Her eyes were the color of cold river water. "I know what you meant." Ryan held her gaze for a second too long, then looked away. Vivian's voice softened. "She is very direct. She learned it somewhere," Ryan said. Vivian's mouth curved again. "It is effective." Maddie returned, cheeks flushed, hair damp at the ends. She looked at Vivian and then at Ryan as if checking if the world was still in order. "Are you coming to brunch?" Maddie asked Vivian. Ryan's head snapped toward his daughter. "Maddie." Maddie blinked innocently. "What?" "People eat brunch. It is a thing." Vivian's eyes flicked to Ryan. She did not look annoyed. She looked curious. Ryan cleared his throat. "We do not have plans." Maddie leaned in, voice lower. "We can have plans." Vivian's gaze stayed on Maddie. "What is brunch at your house?" Maddie did not hesitate. "Toast bridges, eggs, fruit, Dad tries." Ryan pressed his lips together, helpless. Vivian looked back at Ryan. "Do you want me to come?" Ryan felt the question land in his chest, heavier than a dinner invitation. This was his home. This was Maddie. This was the part of his life that had survived everything else. He stared at Vivian for a beat, then nodded once. "If you want to?" Vivian's reply was quiet. "I do." The next Sunday, Vivian stood at Ryan's front door at 10:03 in the morning. The rain had stopped for once. The air outside smelled like wet cedar and exhaust. Vivian wore a cream sweater and jeans. Her hair was down. Her hands were empty. Ryan opened the door before she rang the bell. "You are early." Vivian's gaze slid past him into the house. "I am on time." Maddie ran into the hallway and stopped short when she saw Vivian. She looked Vivian up and down again like she was building a file. "You remembered," Maddie said. Vivian nodded. "I remember schedules." Maddie accepted that, then grabbed Vivian's hand and tugged lightly. "Come see Juniper." Vivian let herself be pulled. Ryan followed them into the living room, heart beating too hard for a normal Sunday morning. Maddie's paper bridge sat on the coffee table. Maddie had propped it up with a book, so it looked like it belonged in a museum. Vivian leaned over it, studying the folds. "It is holding," Vivian said. "It always holds," Maddie replied, "unless you poke it." Vivian glanced at Ryan, then back to Maddie. "Then I will not poke it." Maddie smiled, satisfied, and ran to the kitchen. Ryan led Vivian after her. The kitchen smelled like coffee and warm bread. Ryan's blue mug sat on the counter, his chipped one. Vivian looked at it for a second. "You kept it," Vivian said. "I always keep it," Ryan replied. Vivian's gaze lifted to his face. "Why?" Ryan hesitated, then shrugged lightly. "Because it is familiar." Vivian nodded slowly like she understood the weight of that word. Maddie climbed onto her chair and folded her hands. "Dad," she said, "make the bridge." Ryan grabbed the cookie cutter and pressed it into toast. This time the shape came out cleaner. He held it up for inspection. Maddie nodded. "Better." Vivian watched him spread jam, her expression unreadable, not judging, not soft, observing. Ryan set a plate in front of Vivian. "You can sit." Vivian sat. Her posture stayed straight at first, as if the chair might become a boardroom at any moment. Then Maddie placed a napkin in her lap with solemn care. "You need this," Maddie said. Vivian looked down at the napkin, then back up. "Thank you." Maddie leaned closer. "Do you eat eggs?" Vivian blinked. "Yes." Maddie nodded. "Good. Dad makes them weird, but good." Ryan turned on the stove. Butter melted and hissed. He cracked eggs with one hand, a small skill he had learned after Claire died, because it made Maddie clap when he did it right. Vivian watched the motion eyes steady, as if she was watching a small act of competence. They ate together at the kitchen table. The conversation was simple at first. Maddie talked about her teacher and a classmate who tried to cheat on a spelling test. Vivian listened. She asked Maddie one question at a time, precise and patient, the way she asked questions in meetings, but without the edge. Maddie answered with the confidence of someone who believed the adults in the room would take her seriously. Ryan watched Vivian laugh once when Maddie described her teacher's dramatic sigh. The laugh was quiet. It warmed the table. After brunch, Maddie pulled Vivian into the living room again to teach her a new fold. Ryan washed dishes at the sink, listening to their voices blend. Maddie's high certainty. Vivian's low measured replies. Ryan's blue mug sat by the sink empty now. He turned it in his hands, thumb tracing the chipped rim. The day felt both fragile and solid, like glass that could hold weight if you set it down gently. When he looked over his shoulder, Vivian was holding a fresh paper bridge in her hands, and Maddie was watching her with approval. "It stands," Vivian said. Maddie nodded once serious. "See, you can do it." Vivian's eyes lifted and met Ryan's across the room. For a second, her face held no mask at all. Just a woman in a quiet house holding a paper bridge looking at a man who was still learning how to cross. On Monday morning, the office returned to its usual choreography. Wet coats hung over chairbacks, keyboards clicked, someone warmed up oatmeal in the break room, and the sweet smell drifted down the hall. Ryan walked in with a travel mug in his hand and a steadier posture than he had carried for weeks. Vivian arrived at 7:28 on schedule, and the temperature in the room shifted the way it always did. Charcoal blazer, hair pinned back, blue mug in her hand, unchipped, untouched by real life. She moved past desks like a current, efficient and silent. When she reached Ryan's row, her eyes flicked toward him for a fraction of a second. No smile, no softness, only a clean acknowledgement that said she saw him. It should have felt like nothing. It did not. In the morning meeting, Vivian ran through priorities without wasting a breath. Ryan spoke when it mattered, not to perform, not to chase approval. He spoke because the words were there, and he was tired of swallowing them. Vivian listened. She asked one question precise and sharp, then nodded when his answer held. "Send the revised creative to Marisol," she said. "Do not wait for permission if you know what needs to be fixed." Ryan wrote it down. The note was ordinary. The permission behind it was not. After the meeting, Derek Harlan leaned against the counter in the break room, stirring sugar into coffee like he was bored by the world. "Bold today," Derek set eyes on Ryan. Ryan opened the refrigerator and pulled out a yogurt. "Just doing my job." Derek's mouth twitched. "Sure, it is good to be noticed." Ryan looked at him. Derek's tone was light, but his gaze held a shine that made Ryan's shoulders tighten. Ryan did not answer. He walked back to his desk and forced his attention onto the Johnson campaign. The work itself was clean. Headlines, visuals, data, a set of choices that either built trust or lost it. Ryan sank into it like a man clinging to a rope. By late morning, he had a draft deck ready to share. At 11:43, Vivian pinged him on the internal system. "Bring the Johnson deck to my office. 5 minutes." Ryan stood with the tablet tucked against his chest. His palms were dry, but his heart moved too fast. He walked down the hall and knocked once before entering. Vivian's office smelled faintly of black coffee and printer paper. The blinds were half open. Rain slid down the glass in thin lines. Her desk was spare, almost severe, like no one lived here. No family photos, no clutter, only stacks of documents aligned to the edge. "Close the door," Vivian said without looking up. Ryan did. The latch clicked. Vivian set her mug down with care, then reached for his tablet. Their fingers brushed for an instant. The contact was accidental, but Ryan felt it like a spark. She scrolled through his slides, eyes moving fast. She did not praise. She did not soften her face. She was Vivian Cross, CEO, reading a deck. "This line is too safe," she said. Ryan leaned in slightly. "The client asked for safe." "They asked for less risk," Vivian replied. "That is not the same thing." Ryan felt his mouth lift. It was the exact argument he would have made if he had been talking to anyone else. "Then we give them clarity, not blandness." Vivian's eyes held his for a beat. Yes. The word landed like a stamp. Vivian handed the tablet back. "Present this to the client on Thursday," she said. "And Ryan." He waited. "Do not let anyone else carry your point for you," she added. Her voice stayed even. The sentence felt personal anyway. Ryan nodded. "I will handle it." When he walked out, he caught 2 account managers in the hallway who stopped talking the moment he passed. Their smiles were polite. Their eyes were curious. Ryan told himself it was nothing. He kept walking. In the following weeks, the pattern held. Vivian stayed professional in public. No private glances that lasted too long. No small smiles in meetings. Not after the first time Derek noticed. Not after Elaine Porter began taking a seat at the back of conference rooms, with her notebook open and her gaze sharp. Elaine was the kind of board chair who spoke softly and kept her questions short. She did not waste time with comfort. On a Tuesday afternoon, Elaine joined Vivian in a closed-door meeting. Ryan saw them through the glass as he walked past. Elaine sat with her back straight, hands folded. Vivian stood by the window facing the city. Ryan kept walking, but he could feel the pressure in that room even from the hallway. A calendar invite arrived later that day. Compliance review, executive disclosures. Attendees: Vivian Cross, Tessa Nguyen, Elaine Porter. Ryan stared at the invite on Vivian's assistant's shared calendar by accident, then forced his eyes away. His stomach tightened. He felt his phone in his pocket and did not take it out. After hours, Vivian remained Vivian. She came to brunch twice more. She sat at Ryan's kitchen table with a napkin in her lap because Maddie insisted. She folded paper bridges while Maddie corrected her angles with stern authority. She drank coffee from a plain cup Ryan offered, never from his blue mug, as if she knew that object belonged to him and the life he had before. Ryan watched Vivian laugh in his living room once when Maddie declared that adults were just children with bills. The laugh was quiet and surprised, like a door opening and closing fast. Maddie noticed everything. One night after Vivian left, Maddie climbed onto the couch beside Ryan and leaned her head against his arm. "You are lighter," she said. Ryan swallowed. "Am I?" Maddie nodded without looking up. "You used to walk like your backpack was full of rocks." Ryan did not have an answer for that. He rested his hand on the top of her head and listened to rain start again outside, soft at first, then steadier. At the office, the air changed anyway. A whisper followed Vivian down the hall once she passed. Not words Ryan could always catch, but enough to feel. Eyes tracked him, and then looked away too quickly. During a creative review, Ryan proposed a sharper tagline for a new client campaign. The room went silent for a second. It was a good idea. Everyone knew it. Vivian looked at him, then nodded, approved. The meeting moved on. Chairs shifted. Someone cleared their throat. On the surface, it was nothing. Underneath, something began to coil. Later that day, Ryan walked into the break room and heard Derek's voice behind the coffee machine. "You see that?" Derek said low. "He tosses out one line and it lands." Another voice amused. "Maybe it lands because the CEO likes the delivery." Derek laughed softly. "Some people know how to position themselves." Ryan stopped just inside the doorway. His stomach turned. The words were not loud, but they cut clean. The second voice noticed him first and went quiet. Derek turned slowly, smile already in place. "Ryan," Derek said. "Hey, we were just talking about the campaign." Ryan stepped forward and poured himself coffee. His hands were steady by effort, not by nature. "Then talk about the campaign," Ryan said. Derek's smile widened. "That is what we were doing." Ryan did not look at him. He added a splash of milk and watched it swirl into the dark liquid, pale clouds dissolving fast. He carried the cup out without another word, aware of their eyes on his back. At his desk, the coffee tasted wrong. By the end of the month, the Johnson pitch went well. The client signed off on the bolder approach. Numbers improved. The deck that had once felt like a lifeline became a win with charts and clean takeaways. The congratulations came quick. Emails, Slack messages, high fives that stopped short of his shoulder. The praise had a strange edge to it, like everyone was measuring the distance between his work and Vivian's approval. Ryan walked into Vivian's office to drop off final metrics. Vivian accepted them with a nod, asked one sharp question, then dismissed him like any other employee. The professionalism should have soothed him. It did not. The rumor did not care how careful they were. It fed on silence. The next week, Ryan's team gathered near the break room for a quick debrief. He heard laughter. He heard his name. He slowed without meaning to. Behind the wall, two executives spoke in voices lowered by confidence. "His proposal got green-lit in record time," one said. "Must be nice," the other replied. "I wonder what he promised for that kind of speed." A pause, then a chuckle. "Probably not a new media buy," the first voice said. Ryan stood still. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The smell of burned coffee hit him like a slap. His jaw clenched so hard it ached. He felt heat rise in his chest, sharp and immediate. Not only anger, something else too. Shame, because part of him feared they might be right in the only way that mattered, not about his work, about the story people would tell until it became truth. Ryan stepped away before they saw him. He walked down the hall without stopping, his hands curled into fists at his sides. He passed Vivian's assistant's desk. He did not slow. The assistant looked up, startled by the speed in his face. "Ryan," she began. He did not answer. Vivian's office door was closed. The frosted glass held her name in clean letters. Ryan stared at it for a beat, chest rising and falling, hearing the laughter behind the wall, replay in his head like a loop. He lifted his hand and knocked once, hard enough to hurt his knuckles. The knock echoed once, then again, as if the door itself wanted to answer. A moment later, Vivian's voice came through, cool and controlled. "Come in." Ryan opened the door without waiting for permission to feel real. Vivian stood behind her desk with a folder in her hand, her posture straight, her face unreadable. The blinds were half open. Rain traced thin lines down the glass behind her. The city looked washed out, as if someone had drained the color. Vivian's eyes lifted to his. They did not soften. "Ryan," she said, "this is not on my calendar." He shut the door behind him. The latch clicked. The sound felt final. I heard them, he said. Vivian's expression did not shift. Who? In the break room, in the hallway, everywhere. His voice was low, but it shook at the edges. They think I'm getting approvals because of you. Vivian set the folder down with care. Do they? Ryan took a step forward, then stopped. His hands were fists, and he did not remember making them. They are saying my work does not count, that I am not earning it. Vivian's gaze sharpened. Your work counts. Not to them, Ryan said. To them it is a story, a shortcut, a joke. Vivian held his eyes. Her voice stayed steady. You cannot control what people say. Ryan let out a short breath that sounded like a laugh and did not feel like one. Funny. I thought you controlled everything. Something flickered behind her eyes, quick and gone. Is that why you are here? He did not answer right away. His chest rose too fast. He could still hear the laughter from the break room, the casual cruelty, the confidence of men who never had to prove the same thing twice. I work, Ryan said. I stay late. I revise until my eyes blur. I do the safe version, the bold version, the one in between. Then they say it is not because I am good. It is because I am close. Vivian's jaw tightened. You are good. That is not the point, Ryan snapped, then caught himself. He lowered his voice, but the heat remained. It changes how they see me. It changes what my team believes. It makes every win feel like a question. Vivian folded her hands on the desk. Her knuckles looked pale. What do you want from me? Ryan stared at her. The question was clean, professional, reasonable. It made him feel like he was standing in the wrong room. I want you to say it, he said. Say what? That my approvals are not personal. His throat tightened. That you are not doing this because you feel something. Vivian's eyes narrowed by a fraction. Ryan. He pushed forward anyway, unable to stop. Tell them I am not your favorite. Tell them you are not making exceptions. Vivian's voice stayed calm. I do not make exceptions. Ryan swallowed. Then prove it. A silence opened between them. It was not empty. It was heavy and sharp. Vivian's expression hardened, the familiar mask sliding into place so smoothly it hurt. Do you understand what you are asking? I am asking you to protect my work, Ryan said. And the words came out wrong, like they were hiding what he could not admit. I am asking you to protect my reputation. Vivian's gaze held his cool and steady. Your reputation is not my property. Ryan flinched. The sentence was true. It also sounded like distance. He tried again, softer, and it still came out jagged. Do you know what it feels like to have people assume you are not earning your place? Vivian did not blink. Yes. Then why are you letting it happen? He demanded. Vivian's voice dropped lower. I am not letting anything happen. I am running a company. Ryan shook his head. That is always the answer. Vivian's eyes flashed. That is the job. The rain pressed harder against the window. The office lights hummed bright and flat. Ryan heard himself speak before he could stop it. Maybe this was a mistake. Vivian went still, not frozen with fear, frozen with control. He regretted it instantly, but pride kept him standing there. Pride and the ache under it. Vivian's face stayed composed. Her voice turned careful, as if she was choosing each word with tweezers. If you believe that, then we should stop. Ryan's mouth opened. Nothing came out fast enough. Vivian continued, quiet and precise. We should step back. We should remove anything that gives people a reason to question either of us. Vivian, Ryan said, finally finding her name, reaching for it. That is not what I meant. Vivian's eyes did not move. You said it. He took a half step closer. I am angry. I am embarrassed. I am tired. I did not come here to end this. Vivian's gaze held no warmth now, only a measured distance that felt worse than anger. Then you should not use words like mistake. Ryan stared at her, realizing too late that he had handed her the very thing she feared a reason to retreat behind the title. Vivian picked up the folder again. A small motion, a dismissal disguised as work. Is there anything else, she asked? The question landed like a door closing. Ryan stood there for a second longer, waiting for her to take it back, waiting for her to show any sign of the woman who had stood in his living room with damp hair and said, "Do not apologize for being alive." She did not. Ryan turned and walked out. The open floor felt too bright, too normal. People looked up as he passed, then looked away. His face stayed still by force. He made it to his desk, picked up his keys, and left without speaking to anyone. The week that followed was a quiet punishment. Vivian treated him like she treated everyone else. Polite, efficient, unreadable. She asked for updates with short messages. She replied with one-word approvals. She did not stay after meetings. She did not call him into her office. She did not text at night. Ryan tried to work as if nothing had happened. He revised decks. He led brainstorms. He answered client emails. The office still whispered, But now the whispers felt like they were about a different story, one where he had been foolish enough to believe he could have both. At home, the silence was worse. Maddie noticed on the first night. Vivian did not appear at the door. No knock, no careful shoes on the mat, no quiet laugh at the table. Maddie set an extra napkin out anyway, then stared at it as if it had betrayed her. "She is busy," Ryan said. Maddie looked up from her plate. Her eyes were sharp even when her voice stayed small. "That is what you say when something is wrong." Ryan swallowed. "Eat your dinner." Maddie ate 2 bites, then pushed her fork around. "Did you scare her away?" He stared at the table. The kitchen light made a warm circle over the plates. Outside, rain started again, soft at first, then steady tapping the window like a question that would not stop. "I do not know," Ryan said. Maddie's voice stayed calm. "Yes, you do." Ryan rubbed his thumb along the chipped rim of his blue mug. The familiar roughness did not anchor him this time. Maddie got down from her chair and walked to the living room. She returned holding her paper bridge. The bend in the corner looked worse now, as if someone had pressed too hard. She set it on the counter between them. "You broke it," she said. Ryan stared at the paper. "It is still standing." Maddie tapped the bent corner gently. "Not the same." Ryan did not answer. He rinsed his plate hands, moving automatically, water running too long. When he turned it off, the quiet rushed back in. Upstairs later, Maddie lay in bed with her bridge on the dresser. She watched Ryan with sleepy eyes. "Mom said you build walls," she murmured, "when you are scared." Ryan's throat tightened. "Did she?" Maddie nodded once. "She said it was her job to knock them down." Ryan sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to shake the mattress. "Go to sleep," he said, and his voice sounded steadier than he felt. Maddie's eyes closed slowly. "Maybe it is Vivian's job now," she whispered almost to herself. Ryan stayed there until her breathing evened out. In the hallway, the house felt too big. He walked downstairs and stood in the living room, where Vivian had sat where she had held a printed page like it was something fragile. The rain kept tapping the windows. The lamp cast its warm circle. Everything looked the same. Ryan picked up his phone, stared at the screen, then set it back down without typing anything. Ryan slept in pieces. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw Vivian behind her desk, the mask sliding into place. He heard himself saying "mistake" and felt the words scrape his throat all over again. Sunday morning, Maddie carried her paper bridge into the kitchen and set it on the table between them. The bent corner looked worse in daylight. Ryan poured cereal. The sound felt too loud. Maddie pointed at the bend. "You did the wall thing." He kept his eyes on his blue mug. Coffee steamed up and vanished. "The wall thing. When you get scared, you pretend you are being smart," she said. Ryan swallowed. "I was angry." Maddie did not blink, and scared. He let the truth sit. Rain traced lines down the window. The house smelled like toast and detergent. "I heard her," Ryan said. "Yes," Maddie replied, simple as math. Ryan rubbed his thumb along the chipped rim of the mug. "I do not know how to fix it." Maddie slid off her chair and returned with a clean square of paper from her craft bin. She placed it in front of him like a dare. "Make a bridge, then say sorry." Ryan almost smiled and almost broke at the same time. "You are 8. Maddie shrugged. "I listen." He took the paper and folded it the way she had taught Vivian, crease by crease, until a small arch stood on its own. It was not perfect. It stood anyway. Monday, he reached the office before sunrise. Juniper and Comedy felt hollow at that hour, all fluorescent hum and rain against the windows. He went to the copy room and printed a single page from the thread he could not forget. His own words sat there in clean black ink, ridiculous and intimate at the same time. He placed the paper bridge on top and wrote in the margin with a pen that trembled slightly. "If this was a mistake, it is one I would choose again. Can we talk?" He stared at it, then added a second line. "I was afraid. I am done hiding." Vivian's corridor was empty. Her door was unlocked. He slipped inside, set the page in the center of her desk, where she would see it first, then left. In the hallway, his hands smelled faintly of toner and paper. He kept walking as if he could outpace his own heartbeat. Back at his desk, the office slowly woke up around him. Coats hit chairbacks, monitors lit. Someone laughed too loud near the printer, then stopped when they noticed his face. Ryan stared at his screen and waited. The morning moved like thick water. Ryan opened files and answered emails he barely read. Each time footsteps passed, his heart kicked. Each time his phone buzzed, he ignored it. At 12:17, Marisol appeared with a careful face. "Vivian wants to see you, now." Ryan walked to Vivian's office with his mouth dry. He could feel the pulse in his wrists. Part of him expected the page to be waiting in the trash. The bridge crushed the message clear without words. Her door was open. Vivian stood by the window back to him, city blurred by rain. "Close the door," she said. He did. Vivian turned. The printed page was in her hand. The paper bridge sat on her desk, still standing. I received your note, she said. Ryan nodded. Yes. She held up the page. You left this here. I did not want it on the system, he said. I did not want it used against you. A beat of silence. Vivian set the page down with care. Last week she said you came into this office and called us a mistake. Ryan felt heat rise behind his eyes. I was trying to make the noise stop. Vivian's gaze stayed steady, but her hands were not perfectly still. So, you decided to cut the thing they could talk about. Ryan exhaled. I decided to run. That is what I do when I am scared. Vivian's jaw flexed. And you were willing to make me the reason you ran. No, Ryan said quickly. I was willing to make you the excuse. He swallowed. I am sorry. I made you put your mask back on. Vivian's eyes flicked to the bridge. My mask works. I know, Ryan said, but I miss you without it. Vivian looked at him for a long moment. The office felt too bright, too quiet. Then she spoke low. I missed you too. Ryan's shoulders dropped a fraction, relief and fear mixing in his chest. Vivian picked up the paper bridge and turned it once in her fingers, careful with the folds. It stands, she said. It is what Maddie keeps saying, Ryan replied. You have to step onto it. Vivian's mouth tightened, as if she was holding back a reaction. Do not use your daughter's wisdom as a weapon. Ryan gave a small nod. Fair. He took a breath and forced the next words out clean. The rumors are not going away because we act professional. They will just keep changing shape. Vivian's eyes sharpened. Then what do you want? The right thing, Ryan said. We talk to Tessa. We disclose. We put boundaries in writing. We take away the shadow they are feeding on. Vivian studied him, searching for hesitation. Ryan held her gaze. And your work, she said. My work stays mine, Ryan answered. If someone questions it, they can argue with the deck and the results, not a story in the break room. Vivian's expression shifted, subtle but real, something like respect and something like relief. She slid the printed page into her folder. All right, she said. Ryan let out a breath. All right. Vivian stepped around her desk, stopping close enough that Ryan could smell her perfume, clean and faint, like rain on stone. Do not make me regret opening the door, she said. Ryan's throat tightened. I will not. Vivian's eyes held his for a beat longer than business required. Then she turned toward the hallway. Come, she said. We are going to see Tessa. Ryan followed Vivian down the hall, with his pulse still loud in his ears. The office noise faded behind them as they turned toward HR. Rain pattered against the windows, soft and steady, as if the building itself was trying to keep a secret. Tessa Nguyen's door was open. She looked up from her laptop and took in their faces in one clean scan. Her expression did not change, but her eyes sharpened. Close the door, Tessa said. Vivian did. Ryan stood beside her, hands at his sides, shoulders squared like he was bracing for impact. Tessa folded her hands on the desk. I'm going to ask a question, she said. You will answer it directly. Are you in a relationship? Vivian's voice was calm. Yes. Ryan swallowed. Yes. Tessa nodded once, like she was checking a box. All right, then we do this properly. She opened a folder and slid 2 documents across the desk. One was a disclosure form. The other was a policy summary with highlighted lines. Tessa tapped at her shiz page with her pen. Conflict of interest is not a feeling, she said. It's structure. We adjust the structure. Vivian listened without interrupting. Ryan did too. Tessa asked practical questions. Who reported to whom? Which approvals were tied to compensation? What access existed to private performance reviews? Vivian answered with precision. Ryan answered with the specifics of his role and his team. Tessa made a note, then looked up. Ryan, you will report to the COO for final approvals on budgets and promotions. Vivian will have no involvement in your compensation decisions. Your work product can still be evaluated by her in meetings, but major decisions move away from her desk. That protects both of you. Ryan's jaw tightened, not from pride, from reality. He nodded, understood. Vivian's face stayed composed. Do it. Tessa's gaze moved between them. There will be gossip, she said. I can't stop that. But I can stop the company from turning gossip into a liability. Vivian's eyes did not flinch. Good. Tessa leaned back slightly. Elaine will want to hear this from me, not from a rumor. I'll schedule a brief meeting. The meeting happened that afternoon. Elaine Porter sat across from them in a small conference room with a glass wall and a view of gray streets. She did not waste time on warmth. This is a risk, Elaine said. Vivian met her gaze. Yes. Elaine glanced at Ryan. And you understand perception. Ryan's throat tightened. I do. Elaine's eyes narrowed. Do you also understand that your work needs to stand without anyone wondering if it is being carried? Ryan held her gaze. It does. Elaine looked at Tessa's notes, then nodded once, sharp and final. Put the safeguards in place. If either of you breaks them, I will not debate consequences. Vivian's reply was immediate. Understood. Ryan's voice came out steady. Understood. After that, the office did what offices do. It adjusted, not with applause, with quiet shifts. A reporting line changed on an org chart. A calendar invite went to different people. Approvals came from the COO's office instead of Vivian's. The machinery moved and the story people wanted to tell began to lose traction. It did not vanish overnight. 2 days later, in a creative review, Derek leaned back in his chair and let his smile linger a second too long. So, we're all clear on who signs off now, Derek said, voice casual, just so no one gets confused. A few people laughed thin and careful. Ryan felt heat rise in his chest. He set his pen down and looked at Derek. No one is confused, Ryan said. His voice was calm and the calm was deliberate. The COO approves budgets. The deck is in front of you. If you have a problem with the strategy, tell me where the data fails. The room went quiet. Derek's smile faltered, then returned with effort. I'm just asking, Derek said. Ryan nodded once. Then ask about the work. Vivian sat at the far end of the table, hands folded face neutral. She did not rescue him. She did not need to. She let the silence hold. The review moved on. Ideas landed. Decisions were made. When someone tried to soften the tagline into something safer, Ryan pushed back with the same clarity Vivian had demanded from him the first day. The team listened, not because of rumor, because the argument was good. That evening, rain eased into a mist. Ryan drove home through wet streets that reflected headlights like scattered coins. Maddie was at the kitchen table when he walked in, her paper bridge centered like it owned the place. She looked up. Did you fix it? Ryan hung up his coat. He did not pretend. I talked. I listened. I did the hard part. Maddie studied his face, then nodded once. Good. The next Sunday morning, the sky was still gray, but the rain was gentle. Ryan stood at the stove flipping toast while the kitchen filled with the smell of butter. Maddie set the table with fierce concentration, placing 3 plates down instead of 2, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. A knock came at the door. Maddie sprinted down the hall and opened it before Ryan could wipe his hands. Vivian stood on the porch with her hair down and a small paper bag in her hand. The bag released the scent of warm pastries into the cold air. Maddie grabbed Vivian's hand immediately, not asking, not waiting. You're on time, she said. Vivian's mouth curved. I'm always on time. Maddie tugged her inside. Take your shoes off. Dad is making bridges. Ryan appeared in the hallway, towel in hand. Vivian's eyes met his. The look held warmth, quiet and steady, and then she stepped forward and kissed him once, light and certain. Good morning, she said. Ryan's voice came out soft. Good morning. In the kitchen, Vivian set the pastries down and washed her hands without being told. Maddie watched her satisfied. Ryan placed a plate in front of Vivian with a toast bridge and eggs that were, as Maddie said, weird but good. Vivian sat with her posture straight at first. Then Maddie placed a napkin in her lap, solemn as a judge, and Vivian let out a small breath that turned into a quiet laugh. Ryan poured coffee into his chipped blue mug, then paused and looked at Vivian. She reached into the cabinet and took out a plain mug, then stopped and looked at it as if it did not fit. She set it back and picked up a blue mug instead. Not his. Another one newer, the some deep cobalt color bought sometime between her first brunch and now. She poured coffee then, after a brief hesitation, added a small splash of milk. Maddie noticed. You changed it. Vivian looked at Maddie. I'm experimenting. Maddie nodded approvingly. That's how bridges get better. Ryan sat down across from them. The rain tapped the window in a slow rhythm. The paper bridge on the table stood between the plates, stubborn and proud. Vivian's phone buzzed once. She glanced at the screen, then turned it face down without reading. Her hand found Ryan's under the table fingers, warm against his. Ryan looked up and caught her eyes. There was mischief there, small, and contained like a private joke. Your kitchen is safer than you think, Vivian said quietly. Ryan felt his face warm. He looked away toward Maddie, who was already talking about a new fold she wanted to teach her hands moving with confidence. Outside, the street stayed wet and gray, and inside, the kitchen light stayed warm. The bridge on the table held its shape, and so did the space they were building around it. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.